Mankind has, it seems, tried everything, and we have run out of options other than normalcy. The fringe ideas and the wild scenarios have had their day. The extremists and outliers had their turn in the limelight. In all fairness, perhaps normalcy ought to be given a chance and be heard. But of course, so few even know what normalcy is. Due to the radicalism of the time, many did not even know normalcy existed. Normalcy was made to seem the radical notion and the fringe option. Normalcy is possible, but it requires a conservative setting. Liberalism is antithetical to a normal life. This will be a problem for a lot of people. They will want to adopt a liberal position on many issues. That is their choice, but liberalism and normalcy are not compatible. But even conservatism has been corrupted by many of the ideas of liberalism. These must be purged to enjoy a normal existence. The key to the normal life is the market, not the state. Conservatives cannot vote in normality. The normal state is the homeostatic state. The normal person is like all other persons. This is equality. There is no entitlements or special interests. Each person is in harmony with all others. In market terms, we each pay our own costs, and no one pays the costs of others. No claims are made on that which was created by another. We each own what we create, and no one takes ownership of that which was formed by another, other than by means of the market. Liberals teach us that nothing is natural, and everything is optional. Their clarion call is, let freedom reign, but freedom has its costs, and these costs have to be paid. So, the issue is, who pays for these costs? The question is, can something that cannot exist outside of an artificial environment be natural? To which it is replied that with man, everything is artificial. This is not so if we link the natural with the normal. The natural environment of mankind is man-made but not artificial. What is artificial is what does not flow from natural influences. A farm is natural and normal though man-made. What is normal is naturally sustainable. Think of a human being in an artificial environment. If it is truly artificial, it is not sustainable by natural means. But natural means must be used to sustain it at the primary level. People must work at normal tasks to sustain the artificial environment. An example is a premature child that needs to be kept on an incubator. This is an artificial environment with which the child could not survive. But the environment itself, which is the hospital and its trained personnel, is a natural though man-made environment. It can or could sustain itself through the mechanisms of the market. The child could not maintain the environment it needs on its own, through the use of its own abilities. This opens the door to the issue of culture. There are many different cultures, and liberals argue that all cultures are equal and have an equal right to exist. This being said, few cultures have people in them that do not want many things to change. If they want to keep their language, most people would like a working knowledge of English. Most people want access to technology, if not the secondary consequences of embracing the technological environment. What is normal when it comes to culture? Is there a normal, meaning natural, way for human beings to live? This is the point at which liberals play their trump card, because what they say is that there is nothing which is both human and natural. There is, argue liberals, no reality that is specifically human. This comes down to how they think about humans as animals without a real definition. Human beings are a black box to liberals. They see the externalities but have no idea what is inside. Which is why they have never been able to pin down precisely what a human being is. How can we have a normal position when we are an unknown? The first thing we need is a definition of man. If we are nothing but an animal with no boundaries not imposed on us from our physical structure, then culture and lifestyle are mere accessories and of no more significance than a horse being a plow horse rather than a trotter. The Bible tells us that man is made in the image of God. Instead of defining man in a way that would reflect the concept of God, liberals have preferred to turn God into a physical image, conflicting with the instructions of Scripture not to make images of God. It's not sacrilegious, it is absurd. Man is a creature of faith. Normalcy is being in a state of faith, or what the Bible calls a state of grace. Why this is so is not easy for a liberal to understand and is possibly an alien idea even for conservatives. Perhaps we can begin by declaring that God is truth. Mankind can only have faith in the truth. Absolute faith requires an awareness of the absolute truth, which is God. We are defined by faith because we are defined by what we have faith in. Our reality is what we conceive of as being true and trustworthy. Science attempts to define this, but the methods of empirical science only take us so far. Science gives us probabilities and contingent truths, and to reach our fullest potential, man needs absolute faith in something that is absolutely uncontestable, and that is God. The Normalcy Project is about finding what can be validated, trusted, and verified. Ultimately, it is a search for God as the highest and most perfect of all conceptions. As made in the image of God, we are striving to perfect ourselves. But as men, we must do this in faith, in concert with the faithful, because our perfect conception cannot be achieved without the support of others. The Normalcy Project is about living in faith, which creates norms, or expectations. I may not know you and you may not know me, but we have a right to have expectations. We have a right to unleash the whirlwind on those who refuse to meet our expectations or even think we are entitled to have expectations. It is their fear of the whirlwind why liberals hate guns and reject the idea of social norms. They aspire to freedom because they fear the consequence of their actions if we have expectations. But norms are just the natural expectations people have, and we have as much right, at least, to our expectations as liberals do to their peculiarities. In the end, we can have faith or fear, but not both. If there are no norms, if we have diversity, there are no expectations. With no expectations, there can be no rules. If there are rules, we are implicitly admitting we need norms and that there ought to be norms. The doctrine that murder is wrong and the rules against murder imposes norms upon us. It is, in all of the world's nations, normal not to kill people. Even while liberals attempt to convince us norms are the abnormal subjective impositions of cisgender white people, they impose their own norms on us. Transgenderism is a recent norm that has been popularized by the left. But can this become the norm? Is transgenderism the new truth and the kernel of a new civilization? It depends on the expectations of culture. What do we expect from a plumber? What do we expect from a teacher, from a preacher or politician or other category of being? What features allow us to have faith in that person? We want our teachers to be able to teach and our plumbers to be able to do plumbing. We have to be clear about our expectations, and it is this that establishes our norms and thus which defines normality for us. This is what has not just been missing but which has rarely been possible in modern societies. Other cultures have no problem imposing expectations on their citizens. For modern peoples, it has become something of a faux pas to hint someone has failed to achieve the threshold of acceptance. In many cases, these standards must be set by one's peers. It takes plumbers to determine the minimal set of skills needed to be a plumber. But we not only ought to begin this process, we ought to accept the process is not just desired by necessary. There has to be standards and there has to be norms. We can deny this, but we cannot absolutely avoid the necessity. So long as there are laws, there is an acceptance of the necessity of norms. It is just the degree to which we embrace normality and to what degree we let fear take over. If we dig down to the deepest level of our being, we are confronted with a single choice. It is not an issue as minors, but it is a choice that must be made by every person if they are to move into maturity. This choice we make is fundamental, with more repercussions than most understand. It is the choice between good and evil. What this does is determine if we are, as adults, willing to pay the costs of our choices. This decision is meaningless, even meant, if we do not make it possible for anyone to make the choice. This is where the church comes in. Atheists may be well-intentioned, but if they are not part of the church, it is impossible for them to make the leap into maturity. The person who fears others and sees others as a risk cannot reconcile themselves to the church. He or she will not expose themselves to the tribunal of the church, and so they will remain apart and trust in their own power. As part of this process, liberals accumulate property, partly as an individual effort and partly through the process of acquiring positions of importance. Power is always expressed through property. The more power a person has, the more direct and indirect control over property he or she has. But private and public property ownership is satanic. It is not good because it wastes what God has given us. There is a natural expectation that good use will be made of what we have, meaning value will be added to our assets. Private and public ownership does not contribute to the work of adding wealth to assets. Normal is what is most necessary, logical and moral. If truth exists, then the state of truth has to be what is normal. We cannot live a lie because lies are not livable fully. We have to be coherent, and this is the normal state. The Normalcy Project is, in its most fundamental and primal state, a mission to enhance coherency and to make our ideas and beliefs logically coherent. Logical coherence is the highest possible goal we can seek and therefore what must be considered normal.